You are listening to this today either because you have some shit you want to release, or you have an open mind and are interested in personal growth, or both. Forgiveness and letting go are powerful ways to heal. When we hold on to judgment, fear, pain, sadness, etc., then it works like a poison, eventually affecting our physical bodies, making us sick, and affecting our minds and the way in which we view and act in the world. Dr. Wayne Dyer used to say, "It's not the snake bite that kills you, it's the venom that works its way through your body afterwards that does." Holding on to pain and judgment long term is toxic. It's our perceptions and reactions to experiences that determine the intensity of our suffering, not the actual experiences themselves. But the good news is, when we work on our mindset, we take back control of our lives and the choices we make, and we can heal, forgive, and move on. Even if this feels like an impossible concept right now, just be open and hear me out. We are made up of energy. Everything is made up of energy, even our thoughts, intentions, and emotions, all vibrating at different frequencies. This has been proven by science. When we break it down to a microscopic level, each atom in our bodies have a portion of matter and a portion of space that is vibrating, and that space is energy. Our mindset controls how much matter and energy are in each cell at any given time. And Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches, when we are vibrating at a high frequency, we are more like a wave. When we're vibrating at a low frequency, we are more like a particle. Now, think of a radio station. When we vibrate on a high frequency level, we are then able to connect to everything else vibrating on that level, such as your intuition, your sixth sense, love, abundance, joy, etc. And that's the lens in which we view the world. When we're vibrating on a low frequency, we tend to focus on what we don't want and what we don't have. And in doing so, we attract more of the same into our life and we increase the density in our cells, making us feel heavier, more fatigued, less inspired, less creative. So, where focus goes, energy flows. We give power to what we think about. The more emotional charge that is behind those thoughts, the more power and effect on our environment it has. By the law of attraction, we attract what we are. What we are is formed by what we think about, and what we think about turns into what we believe. These beliefs hardwires us into an automatic program which controls our actions, choices, perceptions, and therefore our lives. To get out of darkness and repetitive behavior, what do we need to do? We need to turn on the light. We need to change the way we think and the way we live our lives. To turn on the light and bring awareness to our thoughts, we need to practice mindfulness. Now, before we dive into what we need to do to forgive and how we go about doing it, we need to understand how we can rewire the brain. So I'm generalizing here, but from a neurological perspective, when we have a thought, a neuron is fired in the brain. And seeing as we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and about 90% of them are the same, those neurons that are fired together over and over again become automatic. They become hardwired. And once those thoughts are automatic, they're stored in the body. So, like how we learn how to drive to the point where our body can take us from A to B without actually consciously thinking about it. Like how once we have learned to walk, we no longer consciously think about the muscles and the actions that are required to do so. Our body does it for us automatically. Like how you learn to ride a bike. And even if you don't ride one for years, your body still knows how to do it as soon as you get back on one. So those neural pathways in the brain became thicker and stronger with repetition. And it's the same with thought. So, to rewire the brain and disrupt the pathways and thought patterns that no longer serve us, we need to make new choices. We need to have new thoughts. And to do this, we need to learn something new and be open to new perceptions. So, books, podcasts, documentaries, workshops, retreats, women's circles, following certain people on social media, all these things can impact the wiring in the brain. It's the information that you're putting into your mind. So, choose what you put into your brain wisely. Is what you are feeding your mind helping your personal growth or hindering it? So, repetition, consistency, openness, challenges, all of these help rewire your brain. So, question every thought that arises and ask yourself, do I actually believe that thought? So, journaling is also a very powerful way to rewire your brain and expand your consciousness. So, writing your thoughts or answering journal prompt questions can reveal some things you didn't even know you held within you. And it's also a wonderful way to release stored stress within, as it brings clarity and the ability to let go when it's outside of you instead of storing it within your programming. So I've been writing in my diary almost every day since I was 13, which is 25 years now. And if I miss too many days, my mind begins to feel very full and I become agitated. Once I write my thoughts down, I feel like I can let them go and move on. You can let out the irrational and the illogical thoughts, which helps process what's going on within the mind. And with the written word, there's no judgment or trying to be someone you're not. There's no hiding. It's open, vulnerable, and raw. Mindfulness practices also help in bringing awareness into your everyday with actions such as breathing, hearing, smelling, touching, seeing, tasting, sensing, etc. Using actions that you do every day as a trigger to remind yourself to be mindful can help, like washing your hands and showering, so you can focus on the feeling of the water and the way the water moves. So they're great little reminders. And meditation is by far the quickest way to rewire your brain. It's like hitting the reset button on your internal programming and nervous system. If you think about nervous system like a bucket, whenever there's something stressful that happens, it goes into that bucket. And when the bucket is empty, we can handle frustrations and they seem minor. When the bucket is full, it only takes one idiot driver on the road or your child yelling mum for the 100th time, for example, and you suddenly lose your shit. It wasn't that situation that generated a massive reaction. It was because your bucket was full. Meditation is a way to empty the bucket, and laughter is also a great way to help relieve the pressure built up within. There are many ways to meditate, and the more stressed and heightened your nervous system is, the harder it is to sit still. So if that's you, that's pretty common. There will be a lot of resistance and other things that are more important. It can be really confronting too. But what happens when we don't clean our bodies, our teeth, our hair, our clothes, and our homes? How does it feel when we leave that for too long? I know cleaning can be a nuisance and time consuming, but we make it a priority because the alternative feels a lot worse. So, why don't we clean our mindset? We know we have to exercise our bodies to be healthy, but why don't we make exercising our minds a priority? Meditation is exercising and cleaning the mind. So, meditation to begin with doesn't have to be an hour in a cross legged yogi position with a perfectly still mind in a state of bliss. I mean, that's great when we achieve that, but it's not realistic for most people. Meditation to begin with may be sitting on the chair for a few minutes with your eyes closed, focusing on the breath, and observing and allowing the discomfort of the experience as your mind jumps all over the place, creating the impulse to get up and move. But it's a start, and it's important for your overall well-being. It may even be laying on the floor, feeling into your heart space, everything that you're grateful for. It may be going for a walk on the beach and focusing on the feeling of the sand beneath your toes. It may be listening to a song and feeling the vibrational frequency of the sound. It may be following a guided meditation on an app, for example. So these are some of the tools to rewire the brain and to give you the chance to take back control of your thoughts, your reactions, your actions, your beliefs, your choices, and ultimately the trajectory of your life. And once your mind is opened through mindfulness and awareness, this opens up the doorway to being able to forgive more effectively. We tend to attract a reflection of our inner world. For example, if we believe we are not worthy and unlovable, we attract people and situations into our lives that makes us feel unworthy and unlovable. And when you rewire the brain, when you meditate and when you focus on love and gratitude, your brain and heart begins to function coherently together. And when this happens, we go into what we call a flow state, where we are inspired and creative and operating on a high vibrational level. And this gives us the capacity to see what we need to heal within ourselves. It also allows us to see what our purpose is. We begin to see situations and people that we have issues with as opportunities for personal growth and transformation. And this mindset means we don't stay stuck. We don't stay stuck. We don't allow the toxic thoughts and resentment, blame, and shame poison our minds and our physical bodies. We're able to process and work our way through difficult circumstances a lot quicker and smoother, and the universal flow supports you. And you can really feel it. And intellectually, It's easy to understand how to forgive. We can see people's actions as their own internal programming and can see that we don't need to take it personally because it's not actually about us. We can be compassionate and know that they're just expressing their pain, even if we don't condone their behavior, but we can be kind and let it go as a reflection of their inner world. We can even see it as a reflection of our shadow self, the parts of ourselves that we don't like, being reflected in what we don't like about other people's behaviors. We can even understand it from a scientific perspective. Our brain receives a mega 2 million bits of information per second, yet we can only handle around 64 bits at a time, which is less than 1% overall. So, in order to decipher that load, the brain deletes what it thinks isn't relevant. It distorts what it doesn't understand and it generalizes it to make it easier to comprehend. And this is why two people who have the exact same experience remembers very different things. Their brain processing system, as it computes the information or situation, is determined by their past experiences, which is unique to the individual. So if both people in an argument think that they are in the right because how their brain is processing the situation, their brain is different. So the memories we tend to hold on to are ones that have generated a high amount of emotional response, either positive or negative. Yet our perception of those memories are based on the lens in which we viewed the world at that time and based on the information we had in our brains for that processing system, which we now know isn't trustworthy. So just because we think or a thought or have a memory, it doesn't necessarily make it true. If there's something that you can't let go of and can't forgive that doesn't serve you, ask yourself, is it actually true? What are the facts or what are just your perceptions? May there be another perception available? Then there's another option of forgiveness called radical forgiveness, which is the spiritual mindset that nothing bad has actually happened in the first place. We can see that this person or situation was something our soul conspired and chose for this lifetime for the purpose of our transformation and expansion of consciousness. And we can feel gratitude for the person or situation for playing their part in our story. I know this can seem a bit out of left field, but stay open to this line of thinking and let it sink in. It may sound too woo woo and like bullshit, and there's no actual proof that this is the case. But would this line of thinking, if you truly believed it, would it bring you peace? And isn't that the goal at the end of the day? I highly recommend the book Radical Forgiveness by Colin Tipping. He has worksheets and a step by step process to help you forgive and let go from a radical forgiveness energy perspective. So, in summary, there are a lot of different ways to look at and process forgiveness, and it all depends on where you're at in your journey and what you're open to at this point in time. There's no right or wrong. I personally believe that if we have a spiritual mindset, though, we have more tools to deal with difficult situations and we heal quicker. I mean, it's worked for me. So, I grew up with an alcoholic father, a loving man, but he had many internal demons. He never hurt me physically, but he would hurt himself a lot by punching holes in the walls and the windows, resulting in injury that I would usually have to clean up at just 9 years old. He screamed and yelled a lot, saying very traumatic and emotionally damaging things towards me, and he broke things around the house. So as a result, I attracted bullying into my life, which was the frequency I was putting out to the universe, proving to myself how I felt about myself being worthless and unlovable. And I ended up leaving multiple schools from awful bullying situations which kept replaying themselves out at each school, which I now know was the universe's way to try and teach me to heal from this way of thinking. Have you noticed any reoccurring patterns in your life with relationships or work situations? Always listen. You're getting given an opportunity to do things differently and to heal within and to forgive. So this all left me being a very dramatic and emotional, unstable teenager, desperate for love and stability, yet I fed off the drama. I found drugs as a way to escape and traveling as a way to run away and try to fill the emptiness inside of me. I used to give myself the label of being a negative person and that the world was better off without me. I used to say that my mind wouldn't stop spinning and that I needed to install traffic lights in there to handle the chaos of constant cars crashing into each other at a million miles per hour. Yet I also had a deep inner awareness and logic and the need to understand my brain and what was happening. I had a thirst for knowledge. And luckily, I also had a mum who was very open minded and supportive. She had been through the worst things possible in her lifetime, and she learned from those experiences and became a better person instead of allowing herself to be the victim. So her influence and support was powerful as well. I read psychology and spiritual books, and over time, I rewired my brain to the point now that I can teach others to do the same. I've done the hard yards and I know what works, but it takes commitment and openness. I reached a point where I could forgive my dad completely. Bit by bit, I managed to release my expectations and judgments of him. And when I did, miraculously, our relationship actually improved. And now that he's passed on, I can honestly say there is not one part of me that wishes for my upbringing to be different. And I'm so grateful to him for what he had to endure as part of my story. That was his path, and it was also meant to be mine. Imperfectly perfect. There is no resentment, and I have so much love for him. And I feel closer to him now in the spiritual realm than ever. I can also say that I am present a large portion of the time now, very aware of my thoughts and my actions. I can enjoy silence in my mind when I meditate, which is the most incredible feeling. So there is hope for you. I hope this has resonated with you and given you some other tools to go forward from here. 5 other little tips I would like to share before I wrap up that also helps with forgiveness. Don't deny your shadow self, the part of you that you may not like, the part of you that makes you do things that you're not proud of. Be kind to yourself and accept that is part of the human experience. Acknowledge it and use that awareness for growth. However, don't lose yourself in it and don't let those emotions control you. Number 2, practice self-love. This can be in the form of gratitude work, writing down all the things you love about yourself and try adding to it every day, which may be quite difficult to do, but stick with it, it gets easier, and repeating it to yourself as much as possible, because the more you hear things, the more you will begin to believe it. There's also mirror work, which is similar. You look at yourself in the mirror every day and repeat a mantra that you want, something that you want to believe. So a statement that links to the word I am. So it can be, I am beautiful. I am brave. I am loved. I am supported. I am worthy. And it's more than just saying the words. You've really got to feel it into your heart space and link an emotion to it. Like feel what it would be like for that statement to be true. Another way of self-love, to give yourself self-love, is scheduling time for yourself every week to do something that brings you joy and nourishes you, where it's all about you and your well-being and not anybody else's. So this sacred time calms your nervous system and recharges you and allows you more power to be able to show up for others. So it's super important. Other ways to love yourself is to be aware of the environment and the people, experiences, and information that you expose yourself to. Set boundaries where needed. Care for your body by getting enough sleep, moving your body, eating well, drinking enough water, etc. So when you love yourself, you are able to give others so much more. Of course, we are very capable of loving others, even if you don't feel like you love yourself. But when you do love yourself, what you are capable of providing for others is way more impactful and powerful. Number 3, let go of the need to be right all the time. Let go of expecting others to be different than they are. Allow others to be as they are and have their own opinions without trying to change them. This will release a lot of suffering and it is incredibly freeing. Another one is just stop taking things so personally. Let it go. I know it's easier said than done. Number 4, remember that the brain and the nervous system don't actually know the difference between just thinking and remembering something and the experience actually occurring in that moment. So when we keep replaying situations linked to a powerful emotion constantly in the mind, our nervous system reacts to it like it's actually happening in that moment. It puts us in the fight or flight response mode, which causes an intense amount of stress on the body, especially when it's replayed over and over again. This can cause some pretty serious issues in the body and mind over time. So in other words, don't dwell on the past or worry about the future. Just try to stay present and in the moment as often as possible. So if your mind starts to spin, ask yourself, right in this moment, how is this an issue for me? If it's not something you need to act on right in that moment, let it go. Focus on things like your breath, your senses, whatever activity or task you are doing in the present moment. You can also adjust your posture to align to a different emotion. For example, standing like a superhero makes us feel empowered. Shake out your body in some form of movement. Listen to a song that picks you up. If it's anger that is gripping you, the energy behind that is actually physical more than mental. So it can help to do things like scream into a pillow or punch a pillow to kind of get that excess energy out. And lastly, number 5. When you are triggered and experience some form of trauma response, if it's extreme and regular, you will need to work with a professional. So somatic therapy can help with this. But with everyday traumatic situations that spike emotions in us, there are ways to minimize that emotional response from being stored in the body. So first step is to get to safety. That may be walking away from an argument instead of engaging, or whatever may be the case. Then in that moment, always try to feel into your body. So likely your mind is going to be in chaos, but try and become the observer and be the one that's listening to the mind instead of the one that is actually doing the thinking. This removes the attachment to the thoughts and it lessens the power of the emotion. Instead, focus on what you are feeling in your body. The body shaking, for example, is the nervous system's way of processing the adrenaline that has arisen. Allow it to happen and notice the shift and the change of sensations as it does its thing. Like a dog does after barking and fighting with another dog, he shakes it off and goes straight back to normal. Like an antelope does after running away from the lion, similar. Animals are a perfect example of how our nervous system works in emergency situations. They either freeze and play dead, they run away, or they fight, but they don't replay it over and over in their minds afterwards. Their body does its release technique and they carry on as normal. However, if a dog, for example, is in a constant state of fear, like when being tortured by a human over and over again, it loses the ability to process and they become vicious or they give up, right? They become really timid and scared. So that's pretty much what we do as humans because we constantly replay situations in our minds, which doesn't actually allow the body to heal because it just keeps replaying over and over again and the nervous system reacts to it. So it causes incredible damage to the way in which we operate in this world. So that sums it up. I hope that helps. If you enjoyed this talk, please subscribe to my channel, leave a comment, like this video, share with those who you think might benefit from hearing this message. And if you would like to know about my upcoming events and retreats, so I have done one recently about forgiveness, for a half-day retreat, or if you want to hear about any of my other offerings, please subscribe to my newsletter through my website and connect with me on Facebook and Instagram. The links are in the video's descriptions below. Thank you so much for sharing your energy and time with me today. I appreciate you. Namaste.